The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series.
Tattoos flash and off to see Nimbar, except if Laurie fooled Gordon, I can do this take again. Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. I'm not going to go on and on about this. I feel like I've mentioned it a couple too many times already, but welcome to Disc 4. We are in the final 10 episodes of this insane little show. So is this where things ramp up and get really good? Or are we going to stay on the exact same track of the previous 30 episodes? Let's start to find out by taking a look at the 31st episode of TTAF, The Imposter. Please make sure you're subscribed to my channel to see all of my videos. Ring that bell to get your notifications set up so you're notified of whenever I post brand new videos. And if you're interested in lending any financial support to my channel, check me out on Patreon or Ko-fi at Orange Ranger Videos. So I had a funny feeling that this was going to be the second episode not to start on the planet Molecula, just because of how much the episode summary seemed to focus on the human side of the plot rather than Emperor Gorganis. So when the episode began and we got the title card, I was able to spot what I think is the real indicator of whether or not the episode is going to start on Molecula. It's not the direction of the stars, those are always moving towards the camera. It's the number of stars. With no planet to slide into the frame, they just toss in more stars.
Get on with it!
Socially distance yourself, MPG. And where's your mask? Anyway, the episode begins at Drew's house. And to be honest, this opening scene is pretty useless. The Sentinels are studying for a history exam, and Swinton quizzes them on the 3 biggest historical moments from the United States in the 1950s. Laurie gets 2 of them, Gordon gets the other one. Drew had guessed the publishing of Catcher in the Rye, but Laurie correctly gets that it was the invention of television. And in that ironic way that only characters on a TV show can, Drew sees absolutely no significance in television, basically saying it's for idiots that can't read. And we'll get back to this later as Nimbar summons his team. Nimbar tells them that Voldek is attacking Coast City, overloading electric transformers there. Coast City is a fictional city in the DC Comics universe. And now you may be thinking that DC Comics came up with Coast City more recently, and these writers just lazily picked a name for some other city. Coast City was first mentioned in DC Comics in 1959.
Things that make you go,
There's a badly sequenced shot right at the start of this fight sequence. Voldek shows up and zaps lightning at the Sentinels. Apollo summons his hand axes and fires back. Voldek gets hit and starts falling, but then it quick cuts to Taurus falling down.
Space is warped and time is bendable.
The fight is rushed after that. Taurus uses his staff to do a jump kick and then fires off angle until Voldek teleports away. It's so rushed that the transition actually comes in as Voldek is teleporting away. And it's not like they're transitioning to the cafe or something completely unrelated. The next shot is the Sentinels teleporting back to the cave. And it's another pointless scene. The Sentinels make some electricity puns until Gordon reminds them that they have to get back to studying, which is something that I think Swinton would be doing instead. The Sentinels get back to Drew's and have a little exchange with Aunt Nicole about never having left, even though she didn't see them when she was out there just a few minutes ago. Anyway, etc., etc. Nicole pulls Drew aside and starts asking her weird family circumstance questions, starting to make the Sentinels even think that they may have portaled to the wrong reality. However, it's much more down to earth than that. Nicole's soap opera, which we learn is called Storm and Stress, is adding a brand new character, a niece for Nicole's character. So, since art so often imitates life, Nicole figured that the character could be based on Drew and even offers Drew the role. Drew is momentarily excited and then on a dime, shifts back to hating TV and says she's not interested. She does say that she'll do it if she's allowed to completely ad-lib to get a lot of things off of her mind, but Nicole says that she knows that's not possible and leaves, upset at the rejection. The others think that Drew was a bit harsh, especially Laurie. Earlier in the episode, she said that she loves soap operas. I wasn't sure that it was going to be worth mentioning. And here we find out that she also loves acting. I think that maybe once or twice Laurie has mentioned being in drama club. When she says that she can't believe Drew would turn down an opportunity like this, Drew shoots back that she should just take the role herself then, storming off. Laurie seems surprised, but then starts to think about it. On Molecula, Gorganis cannot believe that Voldek has been defeated. Okay, it is really unclear when monsters are defeated versus when they just run away, because in both cases, they just teleport off the battlefield. Anyway, Lechner asks Gorganis what monster is going to attack next. Gorganis says that it shall be Voldek. Again. Lechner's feeling a little bit sassy today, since even after Gorganis yells at him, he wonders how this isn't the dictionary definition of insanity. Trying something that was the same thing you did before and expecting a different result. Gorganis has increased Voldek's power by summoning him out of the action figure box.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
At the cafe, Laurie comes in very excited with some news for Drew. She took her advice. No, not to stop watching soap operas, quite the opposite in fact. She auditioned for Storm and Stress for the role of Drew, I guess. They never give the character a name. And she got the part. Drew looks absolutely thrilled with this news, though I'm not really sure what she was expecting. Laurie starts immediately following Drew around, although apparently this is later on, as they establish that Laurie's been following Drew all day. Drew is very clearly irritated with Laurie imitating her every move. Nicole comes to find Laurie, saying she had to come find her and congratulate her for getting the part. From upstairs. What, does the cafe have an upstairs entrance? You know what, never mind. Drew is even more annoyed by this and confronts her aunt, upset that her life is being dragged into this soap opera. Makes it a neat little parallel with the previous episode, both involving Nicole dragging Drew's life into her own. Nicole's not sure why Drew is upset, especially considering she was even offered the role and turned it down. And this is when Nimbar's call comes through. Drew tries to leave, but Nicole says, no, they're talking about this right now. Drew says she's just going to step into the kitchen to just grab a little something. So, Voldek is back, but the villain side really isn't adding anything to this episode. What's more important is that Laurie is talking just like Drew, even now, and even tries to use her transodisc to transform. She says that it would help her to get inside Drew better if she were able to fight as Centaur. Seeing as I highly doubt that the character on the soap opera is a galactic sentinel, I really don't think that's going to help you much, Laurie. But I was just more confused because of the episode Switch, where they did stand on different transodiscs and their bodies were properly transformed anyway. We get a reused shot of Apollo firing, and this gives me an opportunity to talk about how this show reuses footage. You would not think that it would be necessary for a show that films all of its own original footage to reuse footage, but this show does it in every single episode, and sometimes it can be painfully noticeable. This is something I didn't actually notice until editing, but in Winner Take All, when Scorpio fights Ninjabot in what I said was a really good hand-to-hand fight scene, they actually loop that fight over itself, back-to-back, shot for shot, exactly the same.
This is a retroactive outrage!
Oh my god!
Anyway, Centaur gets her axe knocked out of her hands and gets knocked down. Scorpio picks up the axe, and with another opportunity to learn about Drew, she decides to keep it, tossing her sword over to Centaur. Of course, for whatever reason, Scorpio can't control the axe, firing around wildly and even hitting Apollo before it explodes and she drops it and falls down. Taurus chases Voldek off. On Molecula, Voldek has apparently been defeated again, now back into action figure form. Lechner suggests sending Neuragula this time, and Gorganis agrees. And disagrees. He's going to take Neuragula's mind-stealing capabilities that it apparently has and transplant them into Voldek. Same monster, completely different set of powers. Laurie is now attending school dressed as Drew with a short blonde wig and everything. She does a perfect impression of Drew behind Gordon, totally fooling him. Drew walks up with Swinton and looks ready to absolutely strangle herself. And after the commercial, she attacks Laurie, the others holding her back. Time to learn just what exactly Drew's problem is. The others say that they can sense that Drew did want to be on the soap opera. She denies it at first, but she does end up admitting it. So, why did she turn the role down? Because acting makes her nervous and she can't do it. You may remember that Drew is a performance artist, primarily a poet that does live readings, but she says it's just not the same. Okay, if you say so. I mean, yes, I do realize it's not exactly the same type of performance, but it is still a performance. So you see, it's not so much that Drew is upset that Laurie is imitating her. It's more that Laurie being so close and constantly studying her is reminding Drew that Laurie is doing something that Drew cannot. Drew says that if Laurie will just drop it and keep it to herself, they're not going to have any problems. It's actually a pretty mature take on it, I think. Plus, if Laurie was able to fool Gordon, I think she's pretty much got the role down at this point. Tattoos flash to Nimbar once more. Nimbar tells the Sentinels that Voldek is back, but it's just firing bolts of electricity into the sky. Of course, I was under the impression that Voldek's electrical powers had been swapped out entirely, but I guess not. Nimbar does say that Voldek's readings are different for some reason, so this could be a trap. As they go to transform, Drew asks Laurie if she would mind them sticking to their own weapons this time. She says no, which reveals how that's a funny way to phrase it. No is the proper response to would you mind, but it made her sound like she was disagreeing. After a short fight consisting mainly of reused shots of the Sentinels firing, Voldek pulls the switch, hitting Taurus and then Apollo with the mind control beams. Nimbar puts this all together, but seemingly just too late, as Scorpio and Centaur are then hit with the mind beams.
Game over, Gamma over!
Lechner suggests Voldek killing the Sentinels at this point, but oh no, of course not. Gorganis wants them taken prisoner, so their screams for mercy can echo through all of space. What, he doesn't want them to savor their despair?
Villains are stupid.
I know, right?
They march in zombie-like step towards Voldek, but then Centaur opens her eyes. I have to admit that I kind of called this because the girls got hit by one beam and Scorpio was standing in front. Centaur fooled Voldek by acting! Isn't that cute? The two of them have a nice one-on-one fight that ends with Centaur delivering a power kick that sends Voldek running for a third time. Cute wrap-up in the cave as Drew explains what I actually just explained. Laurie was thinking, in the 2 seconds since Drew finished her explanation, that since Drew has proven that she can act, she should really take over the soap opera role. However, Drew doesn't need to. Her insecurities were over feeling that she wasn't able to act. Now that she knows she can, she's fine, I guess. She does offer if Laurie's character ever needs an evil twin, though. Back at Drew's, Nicole has brought a TV out to the pool deck to watch Laurie's premiere. It really kind of exposes only having access to so many sets, considering that most people would just be watching it in the house. It's not like this is a big party with a lot of people. There's only 5 people there. Anyway, they get to Laurie's scene. Her character says one line and promptly dies. All of that for one line. I have another line. Let me get into character here. Let's read the signs. Episode 31, The Imposter. Pros, Drew gets another emotionally complex plot, Laurie does a really good Drew, and a good transfer of human problem to Sentinel action. Cons, Gorganis had no plan today, Laurie's imitating was way over the top, and missed follow-up with Nicole. This was a weird episode that feels written around a shaky premise. The Imposter gets 2.75 signs out of 5. I find it so ironic that this show's best actress, relative term, remember, entirely stopped acting after this and went on to become an author. This was another great Drew episode, and by this point I really think the writers and producers knew what they were working with, because Drew is the only one that seems to get these kind of human interest episodes. It is kind of ironic to have a good actress in a story about a character who is insecure about their inability to act, but that's show business. This is something I've mentioned before, but it can be fun on an ensemble show like this to get to see the actors play other characters on the show. We get a decent progression of Laurie going from taking notes about Drew and trying to imitate her speech patterns to nailing her complete look and mannerisms and speech patterns, etc. It kind of makes you wonder if this is one of those stories you'll hear about in shows like this that derives from the casting, like maybe Laurie's actress was nearly cast to play Drew instead. And while I was rolling my eyes at Laurie's imitation of Drew stretching all the way into the cave when things should have gotten more serious, the whole not able to use the axe thing is actually something I kind of liked. I do wish they had established it just a little bit more. Nimbar gives Laurie one line about having been chosen specifically to be Scorpio, but it was fun to see her try to use the axe and not be able to because it's not her weapon. Gorganis was on such a good run of clever plans. It was a bad day for our bucket-headed emperor. Send Voldek again, then send Voldek a third time, but with different powers. And I actually might have liked that if that was the intended progression and the actual plan, but it's just Gorganis flailing at trying to figure something out. There was none of the usual intelligence to his thinking. And like I hinted at the start, that's because this plot focused almost entirely on the human side of the story, and the villain stuff was just an afterthought. I hinted at it twice in the pros, but Laurie's imitation of Drew just went way too far. I get that it was deliberately written to be annoying, expressing Drew's frustration. The problem is, being deliberately annoying is still annoying. It just didn't come off as legitimate. I mean, I understand method acting, but this is ridiculous. Laurie dressing like Drew at school threatened to move this story into single white female territory. When Drew confronts Nicole about adding her to the soap opera, Nicole says they're going to discuss it right then and there, even when Drew tries to leave to go be a Sentinel. Nicole says she'll get a table while Drew goes and grabs that one thing from the kitchen, and this is never followed up on, and I found that a little bit disappointing. Drew's emotional acting has been the highlight of not just this episode, but the season, and seeing the two hash it out could have been really interesting. I really would have rather that they dropped one of the useless Voldek fights and given us that instead. This wasn't exactly a bad episode, I just feel like it was based on a really simple idea. What if Laurie was playing Drew on a soap opera? And didn't have enough substance to it. Drew nearly saves it, but I just found myself missing Emperor Gorganis' more complex plans. Next time, I got a little bit confused about the title of the next episode thanks to the back of the DVD's box, which I recently found out has a listing of all the episodes on it. The back of the DVD box says the title is Ozone au Moi, M-O-I, but the Wikipedia page and the DVD menu have the proper title. So let's take a peek at the 32nd episode of TTAF, Ozone au Mio. Dude! Emperor Gorganis sends Slagar to suck up the Earth's ozone layer while Gordon is busy sucking up to Swinton's father. And that is going to wrap up another Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Now that the video's done, you can let me know what you thought of this episode, as well as my review of it, down in the comments below. And while you're down there, you can smack that thumbs up button and let me know that you enjoyed this video. Until next time, heroes, may the power portals protect you. She basically says that it's an idiot box for doing this take again. The others think that Drew was a bit blah, blah, blah. She says it would help her to get inside Drew better if she was able to fight as Centaur. And even tries to use Drew's Transo disc. I was just, god dang it, farts! Laurie's Voldek pulls the switch, hitting Swinton and, farts. After a short fight, mainly consisting of the Sentinels' Nimbar figures it out, but Nimbar puts this all together, but seemingly too late, as